Alexis Mateo is, in my opinion, one of the single greatest contestants to have ever emerged from the Drag Race franchise. I will go to my deathbed believing that Alexis Mateo could have won every single one of the seasons she was on, by sheer force of her talent. I think that she easily could have won season 3 had Raja not been called for that season. I think she should have won Canada vs. the World because of her growth. And I think she easily could have been favored over Chad in All Stars 1. All Stars 5, her run was a little more rough, but that was because production was making weird decisions with the entire cast. To this day, I still don't understand what was going on with All Stars 5. That's a different conversation. In today's dissertation, I will be sharing my completely delusional French vanilla fantasy of how Alexis Mateo could have won every single season she was in. Some of the episodes will be rejudged based on my own personal preferences, and then some will have completely different trajectories. This is my delusional fantasy, so if you do not stan Alexis Mateo, this video is not for you. Let's get into it. We'll start off in season 3, where I think her chances to win were the highest. The judges' critiques through this season was that Alexis was too regional, that her drag was too specific to Florida, something that the judges really don't think about too much anymore. If someone's drag is so inherently New York or so inherently California, that doesn't really seem to bother them that much. And when you look at queens like Bob the Drag Queen or Sasha Colby, their drag is what would have been considered regional. But that's not a hang-up anymore for the judges. Starting out with the queen who mobbed Christmas, I'm a big fan of this challenge purely because it is a Christmas challenge. I think that Raja won that the moment that she got on the ground and started making a snow angel. But I do stand very firm that it could have gone to Manila had she shown just a little more personality. And I think the bottom two was Shangela and Venus, with Venus going home. Episode 2 is Queens in Space. Originally, there was this plot line about Mimi I'm First and how she was kind of rubbing everybody wrong. The top 3 is called, and 2 out of those 3 are called as the winner, the twin bots. I think this was a kind of lousy challenge to give a double win to. I think there were others in the season that could have been rewarded with a double win, maybe even QNN. To me, this very much came across like early television emotional manipulation and torture of a contestant. Wrestling Jan is someone who is emotionally tortured by this production team, and Mimi is nothing but an early archetype of Jan. I would keep the win squarely with Alexis and separate that double win from the bottom 2 being Mimi and Phoenix, with Phoenix going home. In episode 3, Totally Leah, I don't think I'm even allowed to say that. I think Alexis with her thingy-majingy was the funniest thing that was on that entire season. I also really loved Delta and the shake weight. I loved what Stacy did. This easily could have been the double win as well. To me, this is where Alexis proved herself once again that she was a star, and that her acting and improv props were leaps and bounds beyond just about everybody else in that group. So I would give her the win this week. As for the bottoms, I was extremely unimpressed by Carmen, but the judges had a thing for Carmen this season. I thought that she led her team poorly. I did not enjoy the way that she emceed her group, and I would put her in the bottom with Mimi. I know it's crazy to not put India down there, but I think Carmen made a lot of mistakes and should have been punished just as much as India was. Next is QNN News. I know I sound like a broken record, but this could have been the double win. For my win, I would give this to Yara Sofia for, almost burned my ass. That's one of the funniest things that's come out of this show. I think that India should go home here, and it should be at the hands of Stacy. I did not like Manila's character, not because I found it uncomfortable. I think that Yara should have won because she was funnier. In the Snatch Game, we have a big story moment for Stacey Lane Matthews because she came out of her shell and turned things around by playing as Monique. I think that her performance was fun. I quote, all the time. But do I think Stacey stretched herself as much as everybody else that challenge? Not really. I think that Raja stretched herself more than Stacey did. Hell, I think even Carmen had some fun moments. I thought Yara was oddly hilarious. Manila's Imelda Marcos was so funny. But the funniest one to me, you guessed it, was the butch pregnant Alicia Keys. I loved her flirting with Amber that whole time, showing her the number, telling her where to call, saying that she was pregnant, she was fierce. I stan Alexis so hard. For my bottom two, I definitely think that Delta deserved it. That share was crunchy. And even though I love Mariah, and I ironically think that Joan Crawford was so funny, she did deserve to go home and she didn't know the lip sync. Overall, my biggest point of contention is I don't think that was Stacey's win week. I have a win for Stacey later. In Face of Cakes, we have yet another design challenge. Raja undoubtedly kills this. I loved what she designed, but what I didn't mind design-wise was Stacey's red jumper. I didn't think it was constructed that badly. I thought it fit her decently. The ruffles were maybe not my favorite choice, but I don't think it wasn't couture. I just think it was familiar couture. It was made for her. I think Alexis had some fit problems for sure. I think it was very low. I think the waist section wasn't my most favorite, but also they were really hammering in these critiques in these early seasons about silhouette. It doesn't really seem to be much of a point of contention when a thin queen just does up-down pull body. But it's always a problem when a thicker queen does not have a waist. I don't like that critique. Personally, the outfits that I did not like, and I still don't like to this day, was Delta's angel food cake. And I get that she was going for a Grease inspiration. I think the feathers in the hair was a really cute detail. I always loved Delta's hair, even back then. Design-wise, I find myself a bit confused. I don't particularly love this lemon meringue yellow. The pink sash in the middle is a confusing design choice. The trim is polka dot, which I think would have been really cute on its own if maybe the sash was in that same polka dot. And that wiggly design capelet I don't think matches with the rest of the look. There's a lot of discordant pieces here. In the same way I think that Stacey's was well fit, I think that Delta also has a great fit here. It's the use of fabrics and the choices, I think especially of this pink, that don't work for me at all. And it's a little sickly sweet. It's not my most favorite. And where I think Alexis succeeded was in the immaculate fit of that top. And then I think that upholstery fabric was the absolute wrong choice to make a skirt out of. But I like the color storyline here more than I like what Delta's was. And to me, this looks more like cake than Delta's does. My other bottom, because it was the most simple thing on there, was Carmen's princess cake. A scoochy green club number with a glittery pink belt, and then the drag queen ruffle reveal coat. I am not vibing or gelling with this. It does not remind me of cake. It doesn't make me think of cake. It may be constructed well, but what does it have to do with the assignment? And that's why, to me, Delta as well as Carmen are in the bottom two. This continues the Heathers versus Boogers storyline and at least eliminates one of them a little bit sooner and earlier, and sort of evens out the playing field of where we're at right now, Heathers Boogers wise. And I think with the show like Drag Race, story matters just as much as the competition does, because it matters when they want it to, and it doesn't when they don't want it to. Next is Ruhaha, the comedy challenge. I think that Shangela wins this one. Her Laquifa character was genuinely really funny. I think Manila rightfully was the bottom. She was very uncomfortable to watch, and I think so was Delta. Her saying "Ru, pick me" is still iconic to this day, but that's not enough to keep her safe. I think that Stacey would be passably fine. She would very likely get some help from the other boogers and would probably be able to scoot her way through to the following week, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of style. A lot of what happened this episode, from my perception, was storyline focused. There was this huge workroom conversation between Yara and Alexis, with Carmen talking about her background and how she doesn't know Spanish, and then Yara and Carmen are in the bottom to the Spanish version of Hey Mickey, Carmen proving that she's connected with her culture and her heritage by being able to lip sync to a Spanish song, and then she and Yara get saved. The Heathers still prevail as the reigning team. This week is a little bit different because Carmen is not here. There's less storyline to focus on. I think that Yara was unfocused in the challenge, that is for sure. But I think someone who struggled more than her was Raja. I think Raja failed to connect and identify with the mood that she was supposed to bring. I don't think she quite got all those pieces put together. And then when it comes to the runway, this has not aged incredibly well. Not that that's my sole determining factor, but it does play a part in it. And I think post-clarity accountability is important. Things were obviously different back then. The other person I would put in the bottom would be Manila. I did not like any part of her skit, did not like her improv. I don't care about a fart joke, but it's just so juvenile to put them in there. And then making it all about, okay, we're gonna send a message to the troops, but I'm gonna talk about how much food I love. It just didn't work for me. And the winner of this challenge, of course, is Alexis Mateo. She is the moment this week. I love her entire improv. Her bam, I want you to come home, baby, freaking chorizo. So all of my vocal stims are in this episode. The lip sync song results in no one going home because I don't think it's either one of their times, but I do think they both need a little bit of a jolt to wake up. RuPaulapalooza The Singing Challenge is where I think Stacey would get her very first and only win of the entire competition, because Stacey is an incredible singer, and I think this would be her moment to shine the week right before she probably goes home. As for the bottom two, it is absolutely Shangela, because she did not connect at all with the fact that this song was meant to be a clunky, derpy country style and not in cool, modern pop country that girls like Carrie Underwood were doing. And the other bottom that I did not like, I know you're probably like, why do you hate this person? It's Manila. She goes home at the hands of Shangela here, a big storyline moment for the Heathers versus the Boogers. Then we have RuPaul's hairball. I think that Raja did win this one, even though she used that tulle fabric. I think overall her looks were interesting and conceptual. I love what she did with that cotton candy fantasy. I think that Shangela's looks were all over the place, and I don't think that Stacey would be able to turn out very much as far as the looks department for this ball. Everything she was doing was a little low scale in comparison to everyone else, and while I think her sewing skills are couture, I think it was a little familiar by this point, and so she would go home at the hands of Shangela here. Next is Jocks and Frocks, where someone comes back. The returning queen I would choose as Delta, as I don't think it should have been Carmen the first time. And in my opinion, the winner of this challenge was Alexis. I thought her makeover looked just like he came out of her family. Loved the way that he was feeling himself on the runway. He looked like a pageant queen, and I just loved everything she did with him. I think that Raja's makeover was confusing at the end of the day. Her makeover looked at least 25 years older than what he needed to be. I don't think this branded Raja very well, but it was good for her overall trajectory to have a stumble moment near the end and then rise back up. I think it's very clear that Shangela would not do well in a challenge like this, and this would be her out week, which would tie off her story with Raja that had been building all season. Then we move to Make Dat Money. This may be one of my more controversial takes for this particular season. I'm gonna start with Alexis Mateo. They really got on her about her bathing suit. I didn't have as much of a problem with that bathing suit, because for me, half of the bathing suit portion was also performance-based. And in that group, Alexis was the most dynamic of all of them. She took that song, she made it hers, she made it cha-cha, it was a little J-Lo, it was very Latina, and I thought she looked cute as hell. There are people that wear one-piece bathing suits. Her cocktail attire after 5, I think, was fine. Was it anything spectacular? No. But a lot of those girls were not spectacular in that cocktail look. And then for her sewn look, while it's a lot and there's a lot going on, I think there's nothing wrong with the construction. It's very safe. I think Delta would have had a problem, not only with construction, because I think all her constructed looks were not my most favorite, but I also don't think that she would come up with the most dynamic swimsuit look either, and I don't think her cocktail after 5 look would be that dynamic. I think it would be very normal. I think it'd be every run in the mill every day. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think it would stack up with the other things that are here. Yada's cocktail look was my least favorite, I think, out of the entire group, but I loved her bathing suit and I loved her performance, and I also think that her constructed look was super good. I'm fascinated by the way that she does these headpieces, and I think incorporating her Pop It On brand into that dress was very smart. So I would give her the win this week, leaving Alexis safe. Delta is the other clear bottom, and I know the question would be, why not Alexis over Raja to be in the bottom too? Raja's final garment was incredible. I think her and Alexis's cocktail looks were pretty on par with each other as far as the volume was concerned. Where my biggest problem is that swimsuit portion, again, is half performance, half look. And you go back and watch that, Raja does not know one single word. She is bubblegumming her way through all of it, bringing that coin above her face and just smiling. And that is a huge portion of what this particular segment was. And it wasn't taken into account with Raja. They didn't even acknowledge it. If I remember right, they acknowledged how good Alexis's energy was, but they didn't talk about Raja's bad performance. They didn't talk about Manila's also bad performance. They just focused on the fact that Alexis looked not right in her silhouettes. But they had no problem with the fact that Raja didn't have much of a silhouette. Raja's not padded or curvy either. That wasn't a problem for them with judging her. It was only a problem that Alexis wasn't curvy. She was curvy in places they didn't want her to be. And so for that reason, not only because I think that she was the weakest in that first category and that really drags her score down, but also it's good storyline to have a Heather send a Heather home. So that brings us to the finale, where I think Yara is the very clear first chop. It comes down to Raja versus Alexis, who I think it should have been the whole time. And so Alexis wins season 3. Let's bring us to All Stars 1 now. This season is a mess because it's in teams, and there was a very clear preferential treatment towards Chad. So let's start with episode 1, It Takes Two, where the contestants are tasked with taking photos, and that's the entire challenge, is just photos and imbuing your personality and your image on your partner, how well you work as a duo, and then the runway also factors in. I do think this could have gone to Alexis just as much as it did to Rujubee. And a lot of times that very first win in an All-Stars season, at least in these early ones, kind of set up the main players for later on. I would give the win to Alexis. I think Team Shad, Team Mandora were the bottom 2. Mandora goes home. We get to RuPaul's Gaffin, one of my least favorite challenges probably of all time. It makes me so uncomfortable and I hate it. Alexis steals this win. They were incredible, mostly because of Yara. I think that Alexis was fine. I think Yara killed this and led them to a very clear victory, but also it helped that everyone else was bad too. And I don't think anyone was able to work synergistically with each other. Charo, what's that smell? It's my coochie coochie! Team Latrilla and Team Brown Flowers are the bottoms, and Brown Flowers goes home, even though I want to eliminate Manila. Queens behaving badly is another one of those challenges that makes me want to throw up from uncomfortability. I hate that they made them do this. The scoring is entirely on points. A lot of that's out of my hands, despite how I would have wanted to have judged this, which is that probably Chad and Yara would have won, because I think Yara's saying, "You're gonna pee yourself." I still think that's funny. You know what, as uncomfortable as this challenge is, I think it's Team Rujubee. Maybe it's Juju that has to ask someone for money, and Juju goes to ask this homeless dude, and Raven's like, "Not him." Ugh. Whichever team that was funny. The bottom 2 are Team Rujubee as well as Team Latrilla. Team Latrilla ultimately goes home. The girl groups challenge is where my biggest problem is with this season. Even without the week 1 win, which could have gone to Rujubee, this is the week where Team Alexis was robbed the hardest. The challenge was, take you and your partner's image, put that on somebody else in a typical makeover format, brand yourselves as a team, and do group choreography. So it is part branding, part makeover, part girl group. 100% cohesive. Team Shad did not do a good job at that at all. Their girl didn't even look like she was in drag. Rujubee's didn't even look like she was in drag. Where Kelly looked like she was in drag. They performed well as a team. They looked cohesive in their purple. I loved their overall look. I loved the styling choices and how punk rock it was. I loved their energy on stage. Jujubee had one of the best lip syncs, and Team Shad's makeover was the strongest performer of that entire room. But I think the problem is that the two of them got outshone. If the makeover candidate is stronger than the drag queen, they don't like that. I don't like that. But this was clearly a moment where they wanted Team Alexis out. They wanted to make sure that Shad stayed another week. It should have been Rujubee and Shad in the bottom. I will go to my grave thinking that. And so with Rujubee and Shad in the bottom, I would choose to send home Shad. I think that Chanel was carrying Chad to the end. Chad in All Stars was so unfocused. In season 4, she was really locked into the competition. But when she came into All Stars, she just had this freedom and air about her that she was just gonna have a good time and do her lady pimp character all the time. And I think there's a time and a place for that, but you also have to be zeroed into the competition. A lot of her ideas were just too all over the place, and Chanel grounded her. I think if Chad had been alone, I don't know how focused she would have been. And so for that reason, I would send them home, because I think that Rujubee were both carrying their weight. Alexis were both carrying their weight. I think Chanel in a lot more ways than one was helping Chad move through the challenges. And that may be an unpopular opinion, but I think if you look at the way that Chad was navigating each one of those challenges, she was just there to have fun, and whatever happened, happened. And in an All-Star season, when someone doesn't really think enough about the challenges, that usually harms their trajectory. And this was to their benefit because Chanel could help zero her in on these challenges where she needed to be focused. That brings us to dynamic drag duos. I really feel like Team Rejudged was robbed here. I thought that this entire storyline that they constructed was very camp, very comic book, very drag queen save the world. I loved what they did, and I still think their transformations were better than Team Shad. I think this pussy tightening story is funny if you're like 16 years old. I thought this whole storyline that Team Rejudged came up with was like a grown-up version of drag queen Sailor Moon in a way. Other side of the moon and this planet Solarium that doesn't get much sunlight, and then this side of the planet does, and the melanin. Especially now that Raven is 17 shades darker than she was in All Stars 1. She really leaned into that character she made here. Oh, I'm gonna get canceled. So I would put your Alexis in the bottom simply because I think that Rejudged is stronger. Nobody goes home that week. We get to the finale, and Alexis wins this one. She's had the best track record of everyone. She's had the best body of work, and I think she would knock out that final lip sync. Now we get to All Stars 5, a super controversial season for I think a lot of folks. This cast is lousy. 1, the cohesion of this group does not work, and the challenges were awful, and this was the worst season to change up the format. Episode 1 is still a frustrating watch. They have La Vida Loca himself, Ricky Martin, clearly there because Alexis was probably supposed to win that challenge. They set up the guest judge and a front player all the time. Alexis kills that performance, kills every bit of that first week, and then is not given a win over India Farah, who was fine, all because she had beef with Derek Barry, and they wanted to have some drama week 1. This was such a cruddy production move, and it was very clear to me that's what they were doing. In this universe, I think it would be very close between Alexis and Evie, and I think it would be hard to decide which one of them would win because I think they both would do well at this song. My thing is, and here's my thing, listen to my thing, this is my tea. I don't think Derek was the worst that week. I think that she was low safe, but I don't think she was worse. I think Angina was. I think they were afraid to put Angina in the bottom because it had been 5 seasons and everyone was waiting for Angina to come back. But then she came out in that Fisher-Price car, scooting around on that runway, looking crazy, doing quite literally the definition of go on girl, give us nothing. It was maniac behavior. I think that Mayhem was not good at all. Definitely deserve bottom 2. But I would also put Angina down there. I can imagine that the group would have a harder time eliminating Angina purely because it had been so long and everyone had been waiting. I think they wanted to maybe give her one more chance. Where Mayhem had just gotten off the show recently, I think it would be harder to let go of someone who had not been on since season 1, punish them. So I think this would be where Mayhem goes. Next is I'm in Love. This challenge is Boo Boo the Fool. I also would be so uncomfortable if I was a male celebrity and I turned on my TV because I heard that some drag queens were singing about me. He's Uncle Jesse and I need him. His pants are sexy and I see it. Taking off my blouse, please fill up my house. I would throw up. And I would think, not the sexual harassment on live TV. I don't like this challenge. I think it was a bad idea. I think Shay is still the winner. Objectively, she was the best. And then that nude runway was so good. The bottom 2 for me was obviously Angina, and I think that India was also bottom. I think that Angina would go home here because she just lacked all energy and presence. In Get a Room, we had a definitive winner called of Blair and Mayhem, even if I don't think they were the best. I thought they were basically just a recycle of Club 96, but without the Club 96. I thought it was the exact same thing, but it lacked all the iconography of what made Club 96 uncomfortably hilarious. Jujubee and Alexis are the standouts of this week. And I mentioned a bit ago that this was the worst season to change the format. Had this been All Stars 4 style, in my opinion, the top 2 would have been both of them. They were freaking hilarious. And Alexis popping that hairspray off and saying, what the hell just happened?
Exotic fruit we can find.
The hell
Bananas.
just happened?
And the runway is one of my least favorite categories, which is multiple reveals. My top 2 are Alexis and Jujubee this week. But when we get to the runway, girl, what is this? Holiday shopping spree at Party City? Jujubee goes from a velvet witch, Mrs. Claus, to an Easter bunny? What is the styling choice on any of this? It's so bad. This was not Juju's week to win a challenge. Like, nobody was good, but Alexis had a strong storyline, and I think at least her styling was better. I love the carnival look and how whimsical it is. The middle look being that lime green is not my most favorite thing, but I love the style lines of the corset and the fringe on this little cha-cha dance number of this tightrope walker. I think it was certainly a stronger turnout than what Jujubee did. I mean, Jesus. Here's another problem. Week 1, they do a bottom 2. Week 2, they do a bottom 3. Week 3, they do a bottom 3. Week 4, they do a bottom 2, and then it's all bets are off. Everyone's in the bottom forever after that. I hate the up and down track record of this season. It is bullshit. I don't think Shea should have been in the bottom. I thought saying that her runway look was crafty was not even slightly accurate. Was it my most favorite look? No, but I don't think it looked crafty. This is an infuriating episode. I also feel like if India was on the strongest team, which I think she was, why was she in the bottom? I think the bottoms for me would be Derek. I don't think she's the best actress. Blair, I think, was horribly uncomfortable. And I think she would probably end up with Derek since Mayhem is not here. And I didn't like Blair's sketch. And Blair may have been Rue's runway girl this season, but this 3-in-1 package is not my most favorite thing, I think. I love this era transition of 50s, 60s, 70s. I think that's a really fun perspective. I don't totally love this shiny salmon that goes into the limoncello. And then you get to the disco look, and that's my favorite one. But I think it could have been a bolder color. On top of the fact that I think her and Derek would not be good together. The two of them are in the bottom, and I don't know who they would vote for, but if Alexis wins, maybe she sends home Blair for being strong competition. Next is the SheMZ Improv Challenge. Yet another cringe challenge because they have to be in boy drag and make weird, uncomfortable straight men comments. I hate everything about SheMZ. This challenge sucks. This challenge sucks ass, man. In my personal opinion, Jujubee was the funniest of this entire group. She was freaking hilarious, and I don't think that Ms. Cracker held even a candle to her. However, I do think that Cracker's runway look was better than Juju's. I loved the military Ariana Grande J-pop idol look. But also, I think there's something kind of charming about Juju's, and I think her challenge was better. I think Mariah would probably be the bottom here because she's not great at improv, and I think that Derek would also probably be bottom. I don't think her improv's that good either. With Jujubee winning, I imagine that she would probably cut Derek for her inconsistency. Then we get to the Snatch Game of Love. This week, they put everybody in the bottom if they weren't in the top, and I think this was a mistake. Drag Race has been so inconsistent with when it does this. In this season, everyone is here starting at Snatch Game. In a later season, that doesn't happen until top 4. Because of Jimbo, probably. In All-Stars 2, it doesn't happen until very late in the game. For me, this was a massive mistake track record-wise. In the Snatch Game, I thought that Jujubee was the funniest. Thought she was up there with Shea. In order, for me, it was Juju, Alexis, Shea. That Eartha Kitt will go down in history as being one of the funniest things that's ever been on the show of all time. And I personally don't think that Shea won that week. I also don't think she should have been in the bottom. I think the very clear bottom was Ms. Cracker and Blair. However, Blair is not here. India Farah is, though. And I think that Mariah would struggle really hard in this challenge as well. And I know you're probably wondering why wasn't India in the bottom the week before? I don't think she was the worst in the challenge. I don't think she was great, but I don't think she was the worst. So this week, India goes home. Next we get to the Charles family backyard ball. Again, I don't think everybody should have been in the bottom this week. I also feel like half this challenge was about your storytelling, comedy, and improv, and Ms. Cracker did not make me laugh. Peeking at her looks, this crazy ramen noodle hair. God, I'm looking at this and it's literally one of those table covers. It's literally a trailer table cover with a basic tank top blouse. I hate this first look. Can I say, something is in bad taste about the way that this challenge was constructed. Anyways, I really hate Cracker's first look. And then her second one, it's a basic skirt. It's not even box pleated or anything. The lines don't match up on the checker, and they railed Jujubee for not having her lines match up on the sides, but Cracker's gingham is worse. I don't like the low cut of this top. I don't like the cutouts on the side. I don't like that this is not a blouse at all. It is literally just a V-shaped pattern with 2 pieces of fabric along the side to hold it together. There's almost no design into this. where you look at Jujubee's look, that first one, that giant hat, is everything. It is such a statement piece. I love that lace top. The little booty shorts with those white heels is so trashy, but it works. I love that the booty shorts are open and her walking down the runway saying, Amber. God damn it. Jujubee's so funny. And then I love this watermelon dress. Like, what? The design of this thing is so cool. I love the strong silhouette with the ruffles at the bottom and the top. It is so cute. It's high fashion. I love that little watermelon purse that she made, and her presentation on the runway was great. Love that she even picked this particular pink hair. It's not too overpowering. It's cute. This is adorable. I love everything she did stylistic wise. This was Juju's week. The bottom two would be Mariah. I don't think that her design aesthetic is the strongest in this room. And I think that Ms. Cracker should have been in the bottom. I hated her presentation and I hated her looks. I do not think that Shay or Alexis belonged in the bottom two. I do believe that Mariah would be out here. Next is the stand-up SmackDown. I think that this is an acceptable place to put everyone in the bottom if they're not in the top. Alexis is very funny to me, and I would give her the win purely on knowing that she is a funny person and she could have a comedy set at work. Jujubee was really in her head this week, and she did not break through in the way that I was hoping that she would have. On the flip side, I think Ms. Cracker was doing way too much. I did not think her set was that funny. And so, Ms. Cracker is in the bottom with the others, with Ms. Cracker inevitably going home. Then we get to Clapback, and I think this is easily any of their wins. More so Juju and Alexis for the wins. They both have about an even track record, with Juju having only one extra bottom placement, but I think this could have been Alexis's win based on the track record she's got now. And I think her finale performance would be one of the best. So we get to our final season of Alexis appearing on Drag Race Canada versus the World Season 2. Last time I mentioned that I thought Alexis could have won this season, a lot of people said, well, Lemon genuinely deserved it. And I think that Lemon did deserve it in the same way that Alexis did. It came down to the finale for me. And a lip sync for the win matters until it doesn't. I've said this many times and I'll continue to say it again. I think from what little they showed us of Alexis, she won that lip sync. They kept panning away. Alexis would open her mouth and they would flash to Lemon. Alexis would start twirling and they would flash to Lemon. They would do a wide shot and Alexis would start to do literally anything and it would flash to the judges. They wanted us to not see Alexis so bad. It was like that first lip sync in All Stars 10 with Ginger and Daya, or Ginger and Denali. The other contestant would do literally anything and they wouldn't show them. So let's get into this season. We start with Drag Pop. I love the way that the teams were organized and distributed this episode. In my personal opinion, I would have loved a top from each group and a bottom from each group, and those would have been the high placers. Especially because Runway came into consideration deeply for me. I think LaPhil's Chinese Dragon was so cool and conceptual and campy. Lemon's little yellow dress was so perfect for her. And Alexis's eggplant pageantry was perfection. As for the bottoms, I think it was clearly La Kahena, Eureka, and Fierce. I think that this is an exception to the tops and bottom rule, simply because I could not choose a bottom from Team Tongue Pop. Maybe Cheryl based on her runway, but that would be ridiculous to put her in the bottom. She was so good in the challenge. And I remember specifically the judges saying Alexis could have won if she was on a better team. So I think she should be rewarded with a high place here. Ultimately, and super controversially, I would give the win to LaPhil. I think that he was the breakout star of that entire week, and I loved his runway. It would be Eureka and La Kahena lip syncing, and La Kahena's out. We move to the next episode, The Hole, the improv challenge. This might be unpopular, but I thought Kennedy played the same character she's played every other time she's improv'd on Drag Race. I don't think this was her win week. I also want to say, I think this was one of the funniest acting and improv challenges of all time. Having Lisa Rinna there really pumped up the production value. If we do another challenge like this, it would be so successful. It came down to the runways to determine who won. They ripped Cheryl apart for her look. And no, I don't think it's that good. I think it's actually quite bad. But I will not be gaslit into believing that Lemon's or Kennedy's were any better. I think the color choices on both of theirs were bold in maybe the wrong direction, in the same way that I think Cheryl's was bold in the wrong direction. And there have been so many times, see Ginger Minge as an example, where someone knocked out a challenge but then looked like poo-poo on the runway and they got a complete pass. This would be my week for giving Cheryl a pass and she gets the win. My bottom two would be Tainomi and Fierce. And while I love Tainomi, I think that this would be her week to go. I think LaPhil would definitely be low, but probably would get the beaver. Next we get to the ball, the glamorous drag queen ball challenge. Category 1 was AI generated queen, so come up with something that looks like AI made it. Category 2 was robots have taken over. And then category 3 was supermodels of the new world. I don't think I've ever seen such a clear sweep in a ball ever. It was Alexis Mateo. The first one, this nude in this midnight blue, such a hot freaking look. I love the way that it's been sculpted because it looks wet. This looks like early AI work. That robots have taken over the world, that iridescent turquoise with the purple pops are literally everything. And that final look is constructed so well. I think the clear bottom is Kennedy. There were a lot of very bad choices made on this runway. And if I'm not mistaken from her Roscoe's viewing party, I think she didn't have the designer or lost all her looks or something and had to get new ones like days before it all happened, which is why her ball wasn't good. Call me crazy, but I love Cheryl's first two looks. I think her last look is fine, but I think her first two looks more than make up for the last one. This is gonna make people upset, but I don't love Lemon's first look. I think it does look like an AI generated queen and I love how lumpy it is. It's got a lot of humor. It's got some fun and whimsy to it. But unlike some of the others who did go a little more glam, I think it lacks some of that. My problem with the robot look is that the mask never came off. I want to see the dragoon under everything, and the mask never came off. That's a problem for me. And this last look is meant to be supermodel, no? I don't really get supermodel from it. It's well constructed, but if we're going to get in on details, this one says supermodel maybe the least next to Kennedy's. And again, I don't think that Lemon's first two looks made up for the lacklusterness of the third one. So very controversially, I'd put Lemon in the bottom two. Alexis wins. Kennedy is out here. Next, we move to the reading battles. The situation here was one person was in the top, one person was in the bottom from each group. I think it's an interesting way of framing this challenge, but I also feel like maybe it wasn't the most versatile because there were some pairings like Alexis and Kennedy who worked really well together and were both very funny. I don't think either one of them necessarily should have been in the bottom. Well, maybe that's not true, but I don't think Alexis should have been in the bottom. And then queens like Cheryl were so funny. Based on her performance and based on the razzle dazzle runway, Cheryl won this one for me. And I think that both LaPhil and Fierce were the ones who should be in the bottom too. Next is Snatch Game the Rusical. An interesting and albeit odd twist on the Snatch Game. What I would love to see if we were ever going to do a Snatch Game Rusical again would be pull some of the most iconic characters like Judge Judy, Liza, Dame Maggie Smith, and have those as the characters that the queens will portray while lip syncing to some of their most iconic lines. I think that would be really fun. The winner for me this week was Lemon. She killed this and I thought her runway was spectacular. Where my bottoms were Alexis, sadly, and I think Fierce also deserved a bottom placement here. Eureka is someone who does really well in the Snatch Game, even if her performance skills are sometimes lacking in these types of challenges. I think that she would be solidly safe. Then we get to the grand finale where things are a little bit different. However, the lip syncs pretty much remain the same, with Lemon going against Eureka. I think honestly Lemon would probably win the hideaway lip sync, and then Alexis obviously wins over Cheryl. And then when we get to the top two of Alexis and Lemon, to this day, I affirm that Alexis won that Celine lip sync over Lemon, from the very little that we saw. I think Alexis is someone who takes a song and makes it hers, portrays the character she's doing on stage in such a flawless and beautiful way that it is impossible to deny that she is that girl. And I think this easily could have been her win just as much as it could have been Lemon's. Lemon had some really great high moments and Alexis had some really great high moments. This was one of the few seasons that Alexis has participated in that I really felt like others were keeping up with her in the same way like Raja did back in her original season. A lot of girls just can't keep up with Alexis's energy, her presentation and challenges, her interpretation on runways and how she translates her own personal style to that. And in my delusional fantasy universe, Alexis won every single one of those seasons. She certainly had the best moments in them. And in my next dissertation, I will talk to you about how she could have won every other season, including all the ones that she wasn't on, by just existing. Thank you for watching my delusional stan video of Alexis Mateo. Know that this was all in fun, so if you got heated or activated or upset in any way about me saying that I think that she should have won over your favorite, remember that none of it's real. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and I will see y'all on the flip.